Um, just looking at the heart of what we're doing tonight. Tonight's going to be a little bit different. Tonight is going to be the kickoff of something that we want to start doing. We want to start implementing more. And it was. I just love the way the Holy Spirit works and the way that God works and how you're struggling and you know that God's giving you a particular vision and God's like, this is what I need you. This is the next step I need you to take. And you're still kind of trying to put it together like, well, how does it really look, Lord? Like, how does it move and flow forward? And I just love the way the Spirit works. This morning I was at a breakfast and the speaker was sharing about the story of Nehemiah. And he was challenging us as pastors with this idea that we're all in this together and we're all building that wall brick by brick. And so we as pastors, and I kind of wrote this down because I don't want to mess it up, but we as pastors, just like Nehemiah equipped the workers with the sword and trowel, right? Because they're surrounded by enemies. The enemies want to wipe them out. The enemies they're doing everything they can. And Nehemiah, what does he do? He prays to God and he takes action. And so we see that he puts people with swords and with trowels. And with one hand, you got a sword and you're working on the wall and you're taking shifts and turns doing that. And it's this idea that as pastors today, we're also building the kingdom of God. We're also helping build that church stone by stone. And so as Nehemiah equipped the workers, we are to equip the saints. We are to equip the saints with sword and with trowel. Because each and every one of you in this room are called to serve. Each and every one of you have a section of that wall that lies in front of you. A section that I can work. A section that Manny can work. That Vita can work. It's a section for you. So it's our job to equip you. It's our job to cultivate this atmosphere of evangelism in our churches, in our groups. And it's this idea of, and this is where the heart behind tonight came is, let's be honest, it's scary and intimidating to share. It's very intimidating. I remember when I first started sharing, I would get the awkward stomach pain for like the day before. And then like 20 minutes before, I get the awkward cough for your coffee for no reason. And you're just like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And I remember I'd go up there and I just open up my notes, no eye contact. I would just look down and read and word of the Lord and then just walk down. Even now, I still get all awkward and walk all awkward. And so it can be intimidating to share. And part of the idea of tonight is to do away with a little bit of that. Of allowing you to be in a place where you feel safe and you feel comfortable to start sharing. Because as Jesus told the apostles, right, from Jerusalem to the ends of the earth. And that's the heart behind this, is that we equip each and every one of you to be able to share Christ, beginning in this room, then to your Jerusalems, to your Samarias, and to the ends of the earth. But allowing you to be comfortable to do that. So with all that said, I'm going to introduce the speaker for tonight. And our speaker for tonight is Ralphie, and he's going to come up and he's going to bless us and he's going to share from the word tonight.
First and foremost, I want to say, obviously, thank you to God that He's blessed me with the opportunity to be able to have the courage to come up here and speak. Believe it or not, when you are up here, like as I am for like 10 seconds right now, your mind does go in a blur of the things that you have prepped. But also thanking God, I want to thank Pastor Angel for also entrusting, not just myself, but everyone else to have an opportunity to be able to share something. I think it's something that not just anybody is blessed to be able to do. We all know there's, numerous places and locations in the world that people can't even open up the Bible. And not to get too sentimental, but again, my name is Rafael Rodriguez. I'm currently 22 years old, And thankful to God, I've been having a relationship with God for, I can't remember the last time I didn't. I'm currently studying at Rio Hondo, and I'm currently transferring to a 4-year to be an electrical engineer. But yeah, that's going to be the first slide. I didn't know if Pastor Angel had put it up yet, but basically the moral of the idea tonight is purpose behind faith. And I think that can really speak to us in a huge branch of things. But the thing that I really want to focus on is overcoming obstacles, that things are not done in vain. There's a purpose behind why we have faith and why we go through things. And this verse right here, along with, the Bible having very important ideas and filled with so much information, I think we can all conclude that there are specific verses that we all can resonate hugely with. And specifically this one, I actually printed it on one of my hoodies that I had made, and also a bag that I had made. But if you guys would like to just turn to your Bible or your phone or your iPad and read with me, go in your head and I'll read it out loud. But it's 2 Corinthians 12, verses 7 through 10. So it says, "To keep me from becoming conceited because of the surpassing greatness of the revelations, a thorn was given me in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to harass me, to keep me from becoming conceited. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this, and it should leave me. But he said to me," and this is specifically, I had put it in bold and underlined it, where it says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in my weakness." And originally, I was going to read the whole entire thing, but I just wanted to make it very vital that just exactly right there, what it's saying is that it hits me so hard in my heart, because we all know that we are not perfect. There are so many things that we are great at. But Jesus is the reason why we have something to lean on when you don't have a dad, when you don't have a mom, or you don't have people to lean on. Jesus is that guy that says, "Hey, you suck at this, guess what? I created it." He's like, "Dude, I'm the best at it. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly for my weaknesses, so that the power of the Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. When I am weak, then I am strong." For me, it's when, that very last part, it's such a huge statement. It's like when you go on the freeway and you see a billboard and you're like, "Oh, look, it's Disneyland has a new sale, or Nike selling a new shoe." It's like you can't ignore it. And for me, that the end of that verse, on verse 10, it's like, "For when I am weak, then I am strong," because there's constant examples in the Bible that it teaches us that people will constantly go through things, but just having that relationship, knowing that God is with us at all times, it's a constant reminder that it's okay, I'm there with you. An example I wanted to share was that when I used to work at AT&T, I went through so many different interactions. And if anybody knows that when you work in sales, in retail, it can get pretty hectic, because you're dealing with people's finances, people's monies. And sometimes you come across where you end up trying to manipulate people to make money. But there was a situation where one of my bosses, to not make it too long, he was actually embarrassing me in front of customers, really bad. And it might not show it right now, but I'm a person that has a very strong attitude, really strong. But thankful to God that he has shown me that being that way can be used for a lot more better things than disrespecting people and, talking to people in a mean way. And I remember telling my boss that, "You can't talk to me like that. you're disrespecting me, and as your your coworker, I don't feel like it's right what you're doing. And I remember him laughing in my face, and then telling me, I'm going to talk to whoever I want. And another point that I want to make as I'm going through this is that God will continue to give us opportunities where we can make decisions and choices. I was to the point where I wanted to get down with the guy. I wanted to fight him, right? Aside from the fact that I felt like I could take him, right? That's not the point. The point was that, God will He will put you in a position where you can choose to, am I going to act out of my flesh? Or am I going to humble myself and be like, you know what, God? I'm going to let you handle it. And I remember that day that I told them, I was like, okay, well, you know what? My shift is over. I'm going to leave. And he tells me as I'm leaving, he's like, well, why don't you take out the trash? You got a minute left. So whatever, I take out the trash. And as I'm taking out the trash and I'm going outside, I wasn't really crying, but it was it was a strong emotional statement, claiming for God, saying, God, like, take care of this. I don't want to be in a position where I have to deal with someone like this, knowing that it's going to be a constant battle. If he's going to continue to disrespect me, things are definitely going to go south. And thankfully, God answered to my situation, and I believe it was about 2 to 3 weeks later, he got fired along with this other coworker for fraud. And that's just a quick example of how even when we're put in situations where it might seem like, well, he disrespected me. Well, what am I? I'm not going to let him talk to me like that. But there's as followers, God puts us a blueprint to how to conduct ourselves in situations like that. And, I'm a true testament for falling into my flesh, because there's been numerous times where I do the wrong thing. And I think that specifically when it says, for when I am weak, then I am strong, God, that is something that, it reminds me that, like, if I choose to go into my flesh, that's right there, I'm saying I'm weak. And if we trust in God and we feel that we're strong enough to not fall into that, then He's the one that's going to constantly make us strong. The next slide I want to go over is you can go to the next slide. Thank you. I'm sure you guys all know this movie, Ratatouille. It's my favorite animation movie. And I remember there was a period of time where I would just put on a book from the Bible and just listen to it. And I remember specifically listening to verse 11, but I'm going to read the whole thing. But if you guys are unfamiliar with this part of the movie, Linguini, the guy that's all sad, we've all been through positions in our life where we feel super sad, and I'm not going to go too much into detail, but there was a lot of moments where I was in high school where people did certain things that made me feel out of place, like I wasn't able to be part of the circle. There's been parts where I worked at different locations, and because you don't want to be involved in certain practices, people put you aside and look at you differently. But it says in Matthew chapter 5, verses 1 through 12, it says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of the righteousness, for theirs is in the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me." And I'm not sure exactly how you guys feel about that. That last verse, I think for me is like, it's all these things that Jesus is putting together to kind of like sum it all up. And I'm going to repeat it again where it says, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. And I think that when I read that, I chose these verses specifically because it resonates with me so much, because throughout my life, and I'm sure that, as followers, we come across so many situations where people are going to be like, hey, well, why don't you go to the club with us? Or, hey, man, we're going to go smoke over here. Or like, hey, we're going to go to this party. Or, like, hey, me and the coworkers, we're going to meet up at this place. And sometimes it doesn't even get to that point where they invite you just because they know who you are, right? Sometimes it doesn't even get to that point. But just knowing that you're going to constantly go through things due to the fact that who you are as a follower and what that means. And I had another example for this, but unfortunately, it's not coming to my mind right now. But I just wanted to make it clear that when we come together as brothers and sisters, and we're going through things, just remember that none of what we go through it happens through vain. Everything that we go through there's a purpose behind it. If we were to just go through life and everyone were just to follow Christ, then where would there be the true divine love for God? And I had this statement. I don't have it on the slides, but it says, none of what happens to us will be in vain, but rather in revelation, because God has everything filled up in line for us, so that we can choose to grow, or we can stay stuck or get worse in our own fleshly desires. Pastor Andrew, you can go to the next slide. This is another. I chose this picture too because it goes kind of with the verse, and I like gratitude a lot. But it says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Neither do they put it on its stand and give it light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Going back to the idea that when we go through things and people are around us, we're also an example and a reflection of what the word is. We have a decision to, when you're with certain people, are we going to act like we normally act with them, or are we going to try to practice the words that we're putting in? Remy in this movie, he has a decision. I remember because the little ghost, he tells him, "Why are you leaving?" He can just go back to just being a rat and just stealing, right? But in here, he's going back to what he really wants to do. Obviously, this movie does not talk about God, but I'm using this analogy to be able to say that, like, God has a purpose behind the dreams that you have. I know it might not seem like the most perfect reference, but to me, it's saying that if you have a dream, if you have a goal, and you're trying to do things good with God, there shouldn't be reason why your Heavenly Father wouldn't bless you and try to guide you to get to that objective, to get to that to get to that goal. Not only that, Remy the rat, later on, he sheds light on the guy that he helps to cook. He shows them the ways, in a sense that we can also show other people, not just from reading our own word and practicing, but also being an example for other people. Because it's very easy to read the word, live by it, and keep it to ourselves. There's a reason why we're supposed to light up our pathway because of him, so that other people can also follow what we're trying to achieve, is get to the kingdom. Pastor, you can go to the next slide. And lastly, this is the last slide that I'm going to go over. It says in Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 18, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished." I'm not sure if, obviously you don't have to raise your hand, but, the first time I read that, I actually got chills because of how deep that means, it's like he's saying that, like, everything that is written, there is a purpose behind it. Not even a leaf that will fall from the tree will fall if he doesn't allow it to. So everything that is set in stone in the Bible will come true. So my main thing is, don't ever think that whatever is happening in your life is something you can't go through. The reason why I had put that there is because we know the story of Moses, right? We know that he went through a lot of things, and even after so long, God was still able to put an impact on his life and to do one of the most amazing things in the Bible. And here's another example that I wanted to bring up, that as I'm studying electrical engineering, previously I had spoke to Katie and Pastor Angel about my difficulties in a certain class, which is Calculus 2. Truly, I have never felt the amount of anxiety and frustration taking that class. I got to a point where I felt like literally every single day I had the biggest headache. I never really got good sleep, and for work I have to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. But as I was going through that, I was in a constant state where I was asking God, well, God, give me the strength, give me the strength to be able to get through this. And sometimes we don't ever think well, God, maybe what do I have to give, what do I have to put away in order for this to work? Sometimes we ask God for strength for things, but it's do you ever realize how heavy the plate is? Do you ever think oh, maybe I'm putting way too many things? You go to a buffet, you got chicken, you got the salad, you got pasta, you put ribs, now you put a steak, now you put shrimp. It's like, dude, you need to stop, man. It's a little too much. You could always go for a second round. When I got to a point where I kind of I let things go. I let them be. And after that second time of taking it, I had some time off to really reflect on whether I wanted to pursue my education and becoming an engineer. And I remember Pastor Angel and Katie praying for me. And the one thing that I got from the moral of it is that if you don't do things good for God, if you don't do things right for God, nothing will ever truly fall in line. I don't care how much money you make in this world or how many cars or materialistic things you can have. That void in your heart will never be filled, because God will constantly be a reminder in a testament of why things are the way they are. Because we're not meant to be on earth to just serve for ourselves. We're here to serve Him. That's why when Adam and Eve, when they sinned, things fall, obviously things got out of place and people started to sin, and that's why all the destruction and things went kind of south. But I remembered after making the decision I'm you know what? I'm going to take this class again. And it's going to be the last time I take it. But I knew that if I was going to pass it, I was going to sacrifice certain things. And one of those things was giving up certain hours at my work, giving certain days off. You know, and money isn't everything. And if you want to achieve something, you have to be able to sacrifice things in order to reach that point. And I was speaking to Pastor Angel a couple weeks ago that just my mental state and my position as far as serving for Oikos and serving for Sundays, there was a point where I was like, dude, I never get to sleep in. It was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'd wake up at 4:30 in the morning. Friday, I'd wake up at 5. And then Saturday, somehow I would have something. Or I would wake up early just because I'm like, oh, this is my day off. Like, I'm going to do the things I want to do. And then Sunday, I'd go play with Amanda and Curly. But after just seeing the sacrifice and prioritizing more the things of God and also pushing away, I'm like, okay, it's okay if I don't make a certain amount of money, you know, like God will provide in his ways. My position and seeing how much more God is able to be like, here, son, here's more, in the sense that it's going to help you, rather than being like, oh, well, if I work 48 hours, if I work 56 hours, if I work X amount of hours, then I'll have more money. But money isn't always the solution to all of our problems. You know, money is time, in what's time? And like, it takes us away from doing the things that are actually vital in our lives. In my position now, when I play, or when Amanda and Curly ask me to play, I don't see it as more of like, oh, I have to be there at a certain time. That mentality has changed, and I feel like I'm hoping that other people can eventually grow into that, is that like, dude, I get to play. The very little time that I devote to God, I get to play. Because if you were to ask me, hey, Ralph, how many times do you read the Bible a week? I probably read it maybe 20 to 30 minutes, or 20 to 30 or 40 throughout the whole entire week. So for me to complain and be like, oh, dude, I gotta go see Curly and Amanda on Sunday, or I have to go play at a certain time. It's like God has truly touched me to be like, dude, like this is the bare minimum that God has blessed me to be able to go play for Him. And I know this topic is a little far left from what overcoming obstacles, but that just goes to show you that even by going over obstacles, God can bless you with other things that you wouldn't have ever thought. And I do want to say thank you so much, Curly and Amanda, also for having the patience over this period of time where even maybe they didn't notice it, but I think over time I made it clear to Amanda that, dude, like if you need me to play every single week for 2, 3, 6 months, I'm gonna be there, because God has been there every day. Why would I not be able to do the same? It just, I hope that everyone could eventually get to that point where it becomes not a habit, not just something you do that like, oh yeah, I got practice on Thursdays. Like, yeah, I got to be there at 5:30. But it's like, oh yeah, man, I get to play. I actually play with my friends. Like, like I get to worship the Lord. And I've seen God do so many amazing things in my life and changing just the way I think and I feel towards things. And I truly mean it, that when I say that I love everyone in here. And just to be able to have the blessing and the opportunity to be up here speaking to everyone, it's such a huge, it's something you can't describe. Because even then, like when I would see Pastor Angel just cooking up here, just giving the word, and just to hear like, oh, you're going to give the word soon. your mind changes. You're like, oh snap, like I have to be up here, you know? And just to see someone like Pastor Angel just do it Thursday after Thursday, you know, just same thing with Amanda, how she is so disciplined and loving towards playing at Sundays for the Spanish service. It's truly amazing and a blessing to be part of something like that. I know I kind of went off on a tangent away from what I was talking about, but just remember that everything that we go through, none of it is done in vain. God has a purpose behind everything, and He loves you, and He's always going to be there for you, even in the times where I was going to say this in the beginning of the class, where I was like, "Oh, close your eyes and tell me what you see." But I kind of like went over that. But even in the darkest times, there's always going to be perspective where other people will close their eyes, or they'll be in a room where it's very dark, and you ask them like, "What do you see?" or "What do you feel?" And there's gonna be people that tell you, "I just see darkness. You know, I'm alone." But even if we're in the darkness, that's perfectly fine. We can be blind. But remember, we don't live by sight. We live by faith. So God is not only speaking through us through His words, but He's also constantly with us in our heart everywhere we go. And that kind of concludes what I had kind of prepped today. Thank you again, everyone, for having the patience to listen, and I hope you learned something. Again, thankful that God has blessed me to be up here humbly. So that's it.